Hey, board gamers, BJ from Board Game Gumbo here, back in the Gumbo pot. This time taking a look at a new Kickstarter that's coming up, a space-themed Kickstarter from 25th Century Games. This one's called Observatory. Roll and write, a randowriter designed by Chris Williams. Let's get right to that table. I'll show you a little bit about how to play. It's just kind of a general overview, and then I'll tell you three things that I really enjoyed about it. All right, I've got the game set up here. It's Observatory. It is designed by Chris Williams. It's for 1 to 5 players. It says it takes 30 to 45 minutes. I found it right about that 30-minute mark was a good aspect for it. And it's got a deck, and it's got some dice, and it's got some drawing. So it's a rando writer. I'll give you a quick overview of how the game is. Depending on the player count, you're going to play a certain number of rounds. You'll take these 4 dice. The active player, who has the active player marker, is going to roll those dice. And if you notice, there's 2 different colors. We've got the shooting star dice and then the regular standard dice. And the active player announce what the dice numbers are so everybody knows. And they're going to use this dice while everybody else is going to use these 3 dice. So they'll use this die. The other players, including the active player, will use these 3 die. And what do we do on that? We're doing 2 things with those dice. We've got this chart here. We've got these constellations, and each person starts with 4 of those constellations in their hand. What they're trying to do is place stars out on this board that's going to match these constellations. And we'll use the dice to do that. So you'll take 2 dice to place a star and 1 die to add to your research. The 2 dice are looking for the 2 elements on the chart, and then one of those spots in where those intersections meet up, you can put a star out. For instance, if I did the 5 and the 2, I'll be looking at 2 and 5, or 5 and 2, and one of these 4 spots, I could actually put a star. I would just draw a little star in the middle, right where that center dot is. And that's one half of my turn. The other, I'll use the other die to mark off one of these spaces on the research track. Now I want to do the research track because 4 of them, when I fill in 3 of them, I get a bonus, either more research or another star, just a free star somewhere. But if I get to 5, if I fill out the whole research track, for the rest of the game, I get that special power. And the special powers are really cool. It could be things like getting 4 stars that you can place anywhere you want. Or the one I really like is you'll choose a number. For instance, in my last game, I chose number 2. And every time I rolled 2, it was wild for me if I wanted to use that. Those some really cool powers that you can use. You notice that there's a question mark here where the 1 should be. Already you have access to 1 wild. Anytime the 1 comes up, that's a wild for everybody. But gaining an additional wild can really help you out. Now, the active player not only does this part, but they also get to choose the shooting star die. And the shooting star die is really cool because it's basically sort of a half wild. If it's a 4 like it is in this case, then I could put a star anywhere on the 4 row or the 4 column. And if that's a 1, even better. It's wild anywhere on the board. If it's a number and I'm playing it with my drive, which is the one that allows me to have a wild on a particular number, then it's wild anywhere again. So you can see that you've got the spatial element of trying to match up these constellations along with these numbers. And after everybody takes a turn, then you'll slide the token over 1 more space. There's a couple of different elements here. We've got a 2-player. I've played it at 1 player also. And then we've got 3 and 4 and 5 players. And each one of those has a different number of rounds. But they do have some bonuses. So when you hit those rounds, you can actually get some more research or get some more stars. So that's nice how they kind of changed it up. The other thing that is a little bit different in every game is that when you start out, you'll get a bunch of cards and you'll pick the 4 that you want. Now, designer does kind of mention, hey, there's 2 different decks here. Make sure you get some from both decks because one deck is all about these small constellations that are easy to churn through, but don't give that many points. The other deck is all about bigger points, and you get these little bonuses in the corners too. If you complete this one, it's not only 10 points, but you get more research. Complete this one, it's 12 points, and you get a free star. So you'll notice that there's the A's here on the small deck. The A's are just like set collection. The more A's that you complete, they're all pretty easy. They're all either 3, 4, 5, 6 stars. And you can complete a bunch of those, but you have to complete a lot to get a lot of points. Like you can get all 6, it's 21 points. But if you only get 1 or 2, it's not really that worth it. So you're either going to be committed to getting these A's or not. But you've got a limited number of turns. So that's basically the overview of the game. We're going to roll some dice when we're the active player. We'll get the shooting star benefit. Everybody, including us, will get the benefit of these 3 dice here, split up between research and putting a star. And at the end of the turn, we will see if we've made any constellations on our chart, mark them off on the chart, get any bonuses that come, and then in turn order, pick some more to fill out our hand of 4. That's everything you kind of need to know about Observatory. Now let's talk about 3 things that I liked about the game. First thing is, look, we've played a lot of roll and writes, or as the Draft Mechanic podcast used to call them, randowriters, on our channel. We played all kinds, some from just regular numbers with dice, some picking out a bag or flipping a tile or flipping a deck of cards. And at this point, after playing literally dozens and dozens and dozens of randowriters, I'm always looking for something different. I think Observatory gives me that. And the reason is it's a combination of really 3 levels of puzzles. You've got the puzzle each round of how am I going to split these dice up? I've got choice. I can do the 1 and 5 or the 2 or the 5 and 2 or the 1 and 2 and the 5. So I've got different ways to split the dice up. How am I going to do that? How am I going to focus on my research? Am I going to hit research hard? And that way I can get those bonuses. There's even a research track at the bottom called funding, where every space that I've filled out is worth points at the end of the game. So how much am I going to invest into funding? How much am I going to invest into the 2 different decks? I could go just for the big pointers, but it takes so long to complete those constellations. Whereas with the other ones, I could be getting these A's and getting special stars. I can be getting these small ones, but complete one just about every round or 2. So I'm just piling up points. Probably want to go for a mixture. I haven't played the game enough to know exactly what's the dominant strategy, if there is one. I'm assuming there isn't one. But that puzzle of having the 2 different decks. And of course, the puzzle of just putting things on this chart. I mean, you're limited in the space you have. Constellations can't cross over. A star that's in one constellation can't be used in another one. So you've got some really cool spatial puzzles here. And that kind of leads me to the second thing that I really enjoyed about Observatory. The spatial aspect of this puzzle. It's not often that we see a randowriter that has that much limitations. I can think of one. Danny Devine did one called Harvest Dice that you may have played from Grey Fox Games. That's one we played a lot. Now, Harvest Dice, I promise you, this is not the same game. Harvest Dice is a relatively simple, very family-friendly, easy to teach. I've taught that game to everybody at conventions, at game nights. You can teach just about anybody that. Observatory is definitely more challenging, more complicated. There's a lot going on with the 3 interconnecting systems. But what I mean is that we don't see that often. And it's not just about your typical Warsh style, here's a bunch of numbers and let's see how many we can combo up so that way we can keep bubble popping. Same thing with the fleeples, with the loaded dice, where the loaded roll and rights, where you're really trying to look for those combos. Your amount of space on this chart is limited. So you have to really plan carefully and have a 2 or 3 or 4 turn plan. What am I going to do over the next 3 or 4 turns? What numbers am I looking for? How can I manipulate those numbers? So that was pretty cool. I did enjoy that. And the third thing is probably the most enjoyable part. It's the theme. We've seen random writers and roller writers have either 0 theme at all, like in the ones from Warsh, or we've seen them where they have all kinds of theme. Where it's trying to really instill this big theme, like the Bobby Hill's one from Garp Hill Games. So this one is kind of in between, but the theme itself is something I enjoy. I grew up as a space kid, somebody that liked learning about constellations and about stars and galaxies. So and I've taken my sons to different observatories whenever we're on vacation. We'll actually go visit the one we went to in New Mexico in South Texas was fantastic. But the observatory, it really comes through. It doesn't feel like just a puzzle with numbers. It feels like you're trying to do these little stars, and there's even some flavor text at the bottom if you want to learn more about the constellations themselves, like Draco. but it really feels like you're trying to chart out these little stars on the constellation chart. So I dug that. I really like the theme. I like the cover. So it's attractive to me. That's a pretty cool theme. Now, I will tell you, this is a Kickstarter preview. It's not a review. I obviously, haven't played the game a million times. I can't give you all the details about it. It's just kind of giving you an overview so that you can see when the project goes live. I'm not familiar with how much things are going to change during the project. 25th Century Games generally sends prototypes or PPC type productions where they're pretty close, but I've seen some changes during the project or after the project where they're upping some of the things or plussing them, as Walt Disney used to say. So I don't know how much of this is going to be the final product. So take a look in the actual Kickstarter project in the comments to find out this is how much this is. Whether the dice are going to change or the boards themselves are going to change. There's a little bit of Lagniappe we should talk about. There's a solo game. I'm not much of a solo player, as everybody that watches this channel knows, but I did enjoy the solo one here. If I'm playing a solo game, I want it to be simple. I don't want it to be a lot of rules overhead to where I have to think about it. This one is so simple. All you do is flip this to the one side, and on the one side, you get 12 turns. So you're going to roll the dice 12 times and try to score the best score you can. You're always the active player, so you always have all the dice. And you've got 2 or 3 bonuses along the way. So that's a pretty cool lineup. I like a pretty easy solo game that I can still enjoy. All right, so that's a little bit about how Observatory plays and my 3 things that I really enjoyed about the game. It's going to be live from 25th Century Games coming up soon on their Star Space-based Kickstarter coming up in March. So keep an eye out for that. I'll be looking at the project myself because I really did enjoy Observatory, and I want to see how extensive the changes or how much this thing is going to be plussed up as the campaign goes. Because I did like the cards and the dice themselves. The player boards were, I don't know, it seems like they could be kind of boosted a little bit. I'd like to see some better artwork on there. But again, I don't know if this is just a prototype, still in development type stage and they haven't finished all of it. So we'll see. They do give you plenty of sheets. So if you get this game, you'll have plenty of game to come, for years to come. That's Observatory. Let me know in the comments below what you think about it. But until next time, Laissez, bon temps, rouler.